to everybody, man. I go by the name of Create, and I'm from South Central Los Angeles. That's where I was born and raised. And pretty much, man, you know, me and Resist came up with this for the purpose of bringing everybody together because we living in a time where, a lot of times in these days, a lot of people see everybody at these big gallery shows and museums, which is all right, it's cool. But, you know, we don't want to lose the essence of the real, true, raw grittiness of sitting down with our peace books, black books, and even being in the yards, which we barely have anymore. A lot of people have their own little private yards where they paint, but this is something that's special because, you know, we lost a lot of that here in LA. So it's very important tonight that we hear. I wish we had way more, but you know what? This is a good crowd right now. And that we here, we wanted to talk about the art form of peace books because the peace book is very sacred to a lot of us. Some people may not see it that way, but I want to not give a big long lecture, but I want to just barely tap into it and just talk a little bit about the reason why this came to existence or why we're here today. Like I said, it's because, you know, we see the value in our peace books as our blueprint to when we go out and paint sometime, or just to develop and build our creativity. A lot of times these days we see black books with a bunch of stickers and tags, which is okay for those who are into that. But if you are a writer and you're really into being a stylist, I would always suggest to have two different books. One for slap tags and signatures, and have another book strictly for all your personal burners. And if you have another book where other people want a piece in it, you know, I think you have a separate book for that. But that's just my opinion. You know, that's not like the main rule. You know, everybody can do it the way they want, but to me, that's the way we came up. At once upon a time, a lot of people had different rules for their books. I remember when I was young coming up, if you look at a person's page too long and they didn't know you, they would get their book back from you because they would think you would study or biting their style. And that was very sacred to people. There was also a time where people would get mad if you catch a tag in their book because they took pride in just having straight pieces in their books. And if you caught a tag, and slap tags wasn't even around really at that point. That came in '86 roughly. You know what I'm saying? So if somebody caught a tag in your book, they'd be like, hey man, you fucking up my book. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, now it's a little bit more acceptable, but to each his own. That being said, you know, I brought along a lot of my partners in here that are very high caliber artists and writers that have actually kept me on my toes on my journey, you know, and that's the whole point of this, is to keep each other on our toes, to inspire one another, to motivate, to sit back and learn and say, wow, okay, you know, and man, I have a lot of people in here that has really pushed me to a whole different level. I'm going to introduce them, but before I introduce them, I'm going to introduce them, but I'm going to show my work very briefly. Then I'm going to bring them up one by one and tell you, you know, who they are, and then they're going to give you a little history very quickly. Okay, so, this is my partner, Ryder, right here. Old school South Central writer, way back from Seville. Like, when I was coming up, I heard a lot about him. You know, him, my homie Nitro, Beauty. These are old writers that people never would hear about in South Central history that was high caliber writers. But I was told when I was coming up that he was one of the South Central best with the books back then. So I always knew, like, okay, stay on my toes, I got competition. But this is my president right here. I got my boy SANO right here from Cleveland, Ohio. Like, SANO welcomed me to Cleveland back in what, 99? 99. Hey. Man, when I seen his books and he showed me, I was like, oh shit. Like, he took me to a whole like, just being around him, because I like to go to his studio and sit with him, and he always has all kind of philosophies and ways of looking at things. And I get inspired just from sitting with him, like, okay, and I start thinking different. Then I got my homie A1 right here, A147. You know what I'm saying? Like, this dude right here, hey, he's like a walking graph right here. You know what I'm saying? Look, you got the grades, you know, he been putting in work. You know what I'm saying? That's some real talk. Hey, but like, same thing, just kicking it with him. His philosophy and the way he breaks down things and look at things from a standpoint of like the way things used to be, but still pushing forward in it. So I really admire him with what he's doing. Who else I got here? my homie PIER over there. Let me tell y'all very quickly about him before you show you his work. I met him in 1988 at a yard in Culver City called the National Motor Yard, or what we call the Motor Yard. We was standing in circles at the yard. Me and my homie was over here talking, showing books, and then he was in another circle over there showing his book. But we heard people making a bunch of noise, so I thought they was about to fight. So I looked, I said, man, what they doing over there? So we walk over there, and everybody put my book down to go see his book. Man, I went over there and saw his book. He took me to a whole different level. His stuff like it was jumping off the page. You know what I'm saying? We're using designer art markers, right? And learning how to blend them in, pencil work, pen and ink. And it was like, wow, man, I went over there. I was like, man, how you do this? He was like, with the markers. I'm like, I went home that same night. See, I say this. A lot of people, when they see some work that's on another level, they tend to give up. And they want to stop. They say, oh, man, I give up, I quit. You know, I don't want, no, I'm like, man, it's competition. When the competition is heavy and thick, you got to keep pushing. You don't give up. You know, don't drop and say, I give up. You let that be some inspiration to keep you going. So from that time from 88 to now, you know what I'm saying, like I've been down with him. Who else I got here? MURAL.
Yeah,
you know what
man. What's up, brother?
MURAL 1 from S2K.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for the invitation to be. Thank you.
And MURAL, man, he's very incredible. He's a dynamic artist, a writer. He's been around for years, and he's been putting in a lot of work. You know, he's been at the yards putting in work from the Belmont Tunnel to all the other yards in L.A. I don't know too much about his history, but what I do know, he's a dynamic artist. I will say that.
Thank you, brother.
You know what I'm saying? So I have a lot of respect for MURAL and stuff.
Likewise, goes back to you.
Thank you, thank you. Who else I got? Got my boy Crown in the back. Crown 1. Let me explain to you about Crown. Crown is from South Central too, around with us. And man, he's actually one of the new members of the crew, like from the new generation of my crew rocking the nation. But let me say this. He ain't no joke. That dude ain't no joke right there.
That's cool.
Yeah, oh man, he a cold piece on them in the books.
That's cool.
And so when I see his stuff, I be like, damn, okay. Once again, he keeps me on my toes. You know, and it's good that we all keep each other on our toes, you know what I'm saying? So I say all that to say, you about to be in for a big treat. You know, I'm gonna stop talking, man. Hey, you know, a lot of people talk the talk and don't walk the walk. So I'm gonna show you what it is.
That's cool, brother.
You know what I'm saying? Now, me personally, I don't have a piece book no more. I do have my old books, but I didn't never really finish a lot of my pages in my books. So what happened was, what I did was I went through some of my stuff and pulled out what I thought was, you know, pretty interesting. So as an example, if this was in my book, this is a full page. This is from the old school homie named Craze, C-R-A-S-E, from Shake City Rockers. He was one of LA's earlier writers way back in the early 80s.
And B-Boy.
Yeah, and the B-Boy, there you go.
Cool.
How many people seen the movie Breaking?
Yeah.
In the movie Breaking in the radio, that was some of his stuff back then in the movie, on the stage and stuff. So I did this piece for him, you know, just to pay homage to him.
Hell yeah, that's cool.
Let's see. Next.
That's cool, man.
This is another Create piece I rock. This is all done in marker. Now, mind you, once again, if it wasn't for PIER over there, he pushed me to that next level. So when you see my stuff blended in so good, it's because when I saw his book, it took me there. You know, I had to perfect my skill level because everything was more flat back then. You know, from 87 and 86. All right, so this is some of the other stuff I've done. This is my Smurf piece. Create Smurf. This is Create Smurf. Going through Smurf land. These are like 4 pages that I would do in the book. So what I do now, because I don't finish books, I just grab regular sheets of paper and hook them up. You know, that's what I do. And bust out another one real quick. Boom. This is the reptilian people. You know what I'm saying? So I got them jumping right here. And you know, I got the underworld and the above world. And you know, and they all working their magic because they in you know, my style is hitting them, and this dude, he's in shock, so he's blocking the style. This is all with markers as well. You know, we use old school designer markers, chart pack AD markers. There's a lot of other markers that's real good these days, but This is what I was using. But this is what I still use. Here's another piece. You know, 4-pager. This is old. This is not real. It's 2013, 5 years ago. But I got stuff that when I was in high school, in junior high school, that I was doing that was ahead of my time. You know, so I show all this just for inspiration. Okay, boom. This is another one where, oh, very quickly. Let me put some mention to this. These characters, I didn't make these characters. Let me tell you about these characters. A lot of time y'all heard of Von Baudet, right? Cheech Wizard.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a good character. You know, Von Baudet is very well respected, and Mark Baudet, his son. I came up and I studied under the best. You know what I'm saying? Which is my mentor named Bazaar One and my homie named Rich. Them the two that took me under their wing. But when we was coming up, we didn't want to keep using the same characters over and over because it becomes played out. So we start doing research and start finding other comic books that had other fresh characters in them. So if we looked at Von Baudet books, this was the character from a comic he has called Jock Waffle. The name of this dude is called No Name in the book. So I say that for a reason because for those of you who only see Cheech Wizard, seek out other books that's by Von Baudet. Same thing with this character. It's from Dead Bone Erotica. So that's where this character came from. So I try not to keep using the same thing. I try to find characters that's very unique and different. Or I might put my own personal spin on it so that it won't never look like what other people have done. This is from my book in high school. This is like a 1-page that I found when I was going through my files the other night. And this is just a page. That's when I was in the 12th grade. I was in the 12th grade. Look, I'm 45 now, so I was 17, 18. I was working like this in high school. You know, that just goes to show how serious I took my books. You know, so that being said, oh, real quick, my bad, my apologies. I did this for the homie Soon. He was one of LA's writers way back in the early 80s, mostly from the west side of LA. He influenced a lot of people around that time period, and he set the standard for like a lot of skill levels and color schemes and styles and fill-in treatments. That being said, I dedicated this piece to him because at the Pan Pacific on Yard over by the Grove, he did a piece that said Soon, and he used the Ray Roach character. So I came up with my version of it just to pay homage to him. I did this for my boy Dim right here. I'll show y'all that. That's for my homie named Dim. I bust that. This is my homie Norm Maxwell. He passed away a couple of years ago, so we call him Nam Z. And I bust that for him, 4-page. I did this for Scheme in New York from TNT. I did this for Rod over here. And, you know, okay, Rod be doing pieces for me, so I had to bust one for him. You know what I'm saying? So I bust the ninja, and he's got blood dripping from his sword. He got people in combat at the bottom. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So I'm gonna leave it at that because man, y'all in for a big treat. Let's see. Rod, come on up for a minute. I'm gonna let you rock it.
Yeah.
How you guys doing tonight?
Good,
First I'll tell you who I am, Rodder169. When I started writing, I used to write this Rod 1, and then before that I think I wrote Rod Ski for a while, because I was a breakdancer first.
Cool.
So I came through breaking, hip-hop. I'm originally from East New York, from Crown Heights. Moved out here about 79, 80. So as a kid, I saw the trains kind of real fast. My mom was a single parent. She was always pushing through the train station. So I would see Fred Flintstone or Von Baudet characters, actually. It was very interesting because they were kind of like on the skittish side for a young kid. You know, you had the Baudet brides and stuff like that. So I was trying to get my peak, and she was trying to pull me through, you know, the train. So I saw it as a kid. I think my first letter style, I was talking, I think A1 earlier, was given to me by a legend called Say City. He dated my cousin, and as a little kid, I couldn't go sit on the stoop, so I had to look out the window and watch him and the other writers sit there and do their thing. So I kind of had an idea, and when I came to LA at the time, it was no like style writing, and it was just, you know, your basic block letters from your games. Yeah. So course, I never took that route, but that was also interesting. So part of my style is East Coast, but it is very LA because this is where I spent the bulk of my time at. I got a few books. I have some old books that haven't been able to put my hands on, but I'm kind of gonna do it in like kind of in stages of time. So this is a new book that I have, but from my early history of seeing graffiti, it's kind of falling apart. It's been handled. So I'm just gonna flip through and find something that's real cool. So I'll still talk at the same time. I can do both. A lot of people that do know me, I learned my first mentor was Design 9 on the West Coast. Him and Sue. Design 9 told me how to structure a black book. It wasn't just your name in the middle of the page. It had to have an ingredients. It had to tell a story. It had to have something behind it. And and he had he was like Design 9 the Mad Dreamer. And so to kind of like be like my mentor, I didn't want to just be Rodder or Rodder 169. So at the time I was really drawing from Marvel Comics, the X-Men series. And at that time in the 80s, it was the Uncanny X-Men. So I became like the Uncanny Rodder. So this is like one of the cards I did. This is a real simple style, block style, with your little chrome fills. Picked this book up a couple years ago. This is another book I did called Urban Warfare. Again, I'm using like Bode characters.
Oh, that's cool, man.
And this was just kind of like, you know, I'm an old hip hop head, so. And I work at a high school, so I hear all this new stuff. And so this was kind of like me going to war with the new school. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, the Yachties and the Burks and you know, so that was my thing, kind of going to war with them. Because like Create said earlier, you know, we were from the generation of battling, you know, and that's how you had to get down. You go to the west side, to the writer's bench, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, you settled it through battling, you know, and style. I have a few more in here. I think that's kind of cool. Show you real fast. Give me just a second. I was also from a crew called Rapid Transit Artists that was here, which later on morphed into LTS. So I was there at the early stages of LTS because my writing career was from 1984 to 1988. There's a gentleman in the room named Dazer. I met him at the school called LA Academy, which was here, and he was about 13 or 14 years old. And being a writer, I knew writers, and I'm being a security guard on the campus. I'm like, I know the writers, you know. I'm like, you just don't write on stuff, do your thing. But this one kid kind of stuck out, and he's really he's gonna sit there and say, slow up, but he's a big part of this connection that we have here because he actually listened to my old stories about Soon and this gentleman here and Design 9 and Sane from LTS, which is Sinner's older brother, which was the leader of it. And when that crew started, it started with two friends, a black kid and a Latino kid. Sane being a Latino kid, and his best friend was Made, little known writer, Made One. And me and Made One used to bowl together. My mother was a bowler. She made me bowl as a kid at this place called Jola Bowl, Inglewood Lanes off of Florence and I think La Brea. And one day I came in there popping off how dope my black book was. And he pulled his book out and I was just like, whoa. And I almost had a moment like Create said, so all you young fellas, I almost gave up. But then I was like, whoa, there's a saying that me and him say, steel sharpens steel. So I'm like, wow, I'm going to get under this guy. At the time, he was walking out of writing. He was on his way to play baseball at Cal State Fullerton, and he put me up on style. He also hooked me up with Sane, which at the time Sane was like, I was just this little kid, your books are cool, but they kind of whack. And then me and his younger brother, Sinner, hooked up. And his running mate at the time was called Disc. And me and those guys hooked up, and my books got tighter because now I had a guy going back and forth. That same summer, I went to summer school, which I didn't want to do, at John Muir. And I met my friend Create, which I met him before because we met through the B-boy thing. I was a B-boy, he was a breaker. Me and Bizarre and Patrick used to battle all the time at the Vermont in that little guy. So I think it's a car wash now. But we did that. We sat at the bus stop and we looked at each other's books and we went home and we practiced. And that's the art of the fundamentals of graffiti to me. Is like it's like you said, to each one, you do what your thing is. Like, I don't know anything about slaps. I just got up on that. I started writing again in 2012. But for me, it was the books, and that was your training ground for the walls. It was where you sharpen your skills. It was a way that you communicated to other writers during that time, because you didn't see many masterpieces. You know, like you see now, you see murals. You have the Crenshaw wall that's end to end, and you know all these beautiful productions and designer paint and stuff like that. So for me, it was about the book. So when I came back, I started. Well, didn't come back. I decided to at work draw something one day, and I put it on Instagram, and kind of like social media, is a good thing, and sometimes too. That's how me and Abe linked back up, even though this guy would go to my house over 25 years. Well, I grew up on Vermont Gate. He would tell my mom, here's my number, tell him to call me, you need to get back into this. And kind of at the time I was this disgruntled like hip-hop ogre, graffiti ogre, I was like, I don't want to do it, I don't like the new stuff, it don't have the original flavor, and so on and so forth. But yeah, the books were a very important part of Graff to me, and I think to everybody. And like I'm looking at older heads in here, also, like it was our fundamentals. I'm trying to find something I want to drop on you guys real fast. But yeah, I'm really telling you my history, because my history, like I said, my writing career was about 4 years. But when you're a Graff writer, even if you're not doing, or you've done it at some point in time, you stay on it. It wasn't a day that I didn't drive by the Slauson Wall, the RTN yard, and check it out. If I was on the west side, I'd go by the motor and get out. I took many days to the motor, lost a lot of days going to the motor, like, why we here? It's dark, why we here? I gotta go check it out, we're right here. You know what I'm saying? Come on. But
this relationship ain't gonna work out.
Right, exactly. You know what I'm saying? My wife pushed me out the door to get here. She loves this shit, something she didn't know I did until 2012. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, hey, it works for you, works against you. I got this piece and I'm trying to show you. Get to it. Actually, 8 requested this piece. Yeah, I'm about to bust it out. I'm trying to put my hands on it without tearing the book up anymore. Give me a second, ladies and gents. Because I want you guys to get to, these guys here, man. Like, yeah. Oh, here we go. Has a character from Vambo Day. It's a full page, giant book with the astronaut girl. And like Create said, you take the Bode characters. I use Bode characters a lot because coming out of Brooklyn, I didn't know I was watching Donnie pieces roll by.
Yeah, I knew.
Until like Subway Art came out, and I was like, whoa, I saw that. Children of the Grave Car, you know what I'm saying? I saw it full color, I saw it faded.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah.
whoa, I saw that, you know what I mean? I actually went home for Christmas that year, I think when they had like the MTA strike, and so I saw all the gems that came out of there, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, this is one of my favorites. It actually is from 2012. This is maybe like the 4th piece I